Back to defenders and diners.
Defenders and diners.
Dessert time.
Oh, we deserve dessert. We deserve dessert after the last trial that we finished.
Let's call this dessert discussion of defenders and diners.
All right. So, what was interesting about our last trial that we had just at the beginning of the year was that this was one of the very few cases in which the prosecutor admitted that our client should not be convicted.
Really?
Yeah, pretty much at the end of cross-examination and some evidence of our client while testifying.
That's pretty rare.
The Crown
Conceded.
agreed that our client should be found not guilty. So like a directed verdict of not guilty on
Explain what that means to
on all
people.
counts. He started off with 10 charges. So it means when the Crown says that I've made an assessment that there is no chance of a conviction on this case and the accused should be found not guilty. So he can direct the judge to please enter a dismissal.
Which is rare.
Which is rare. It doesn't happen often. And the Crown attorney was very judicious and very, very conscientious about it and wanted to carefully examine the evidence. And it was a 3-day trial, and there was a lot of cross-examination, but it was the right thing to do, and it was good. It was a rarity, but it's a great thing to happen.
And I think what the judge said was kind of important too. He said, well, thank you for sparing me from having to take a bunch of time and write a very lengthy decision to come to the same conclusion.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So the judge was saying that he would have come to the same conclusion.
Which is nice icing
Which
on
was
the
good
cake.
which was also good for the Crown to hear, right?
But this is important, though, in that even though knowing what the decision would have been, that the judge is still compelled to go and write a lengthy decision to explain to the public why they're not going to convict.
Right.
And so that's a lot of judicial resources being used. And, kudos to the Crown for coming to the right conclusion on that. But the way this played out, and I'm going to get to my top 10 list.
You're just dying to go there.
I am. But, Joseph can kind of explain a little bit what the issues were at this trial.
So this was not a sexual assault case. This was, boyfriend, girlfriend, 2.5-year tumultuous relationship.
He says, she says.
Not quite.
No? Okay.
At the beginning was not.
Okay.
So we'll just say there's 10 counts: assault choking, forcible confinement, threatening, just various counts over the course of a period of time of a few months. And the complainant had gone to police after what she said was the last incident, which she said was a prolonged, vicious beating, very vicious.
Almost out of a movie, horror film kind of beating.
No prior incidents, no prior allegations?
Well, she alleged numerous incidents.
No, sorry, no police involvement before?
No, this was the first time police were involved. And so she calls police. He winds up getting arrested, chucked out of his apartment.
Which is always nice.
And anyways, it's a 2-year odyssey for him. It was a pretty dramatic situation. And she provides the police, she gives a video statement, and she provides police with photographs shortly after of injuries that she took allegedly pictures of from
Historic allegations
from 3 different instances. And frankly, on its face, when you look at the images, you sit back and go, whoa, these are serious bruising and serious marks around.
So it's 3 different time periods she photographed herself.
Yeah, very serious. And then, we sit down and we start to work with our client, and he tells us the story of the situation. In fact, he was in this relationship and not great. He said we were not getting along from the beginning, but somehow we were drawn to each other, and it was not a healthy relationship. There was a lot of anger between the two of them. They'd have arguments over trivial matters, and she became violent after a while, and he would get hurt. And he then said, on a particular date, I tried to break up with her, and we had messaged each other, and she wouldn't let me go.
Our waitress is here.
Oh my God, that's great.
You got homemade blueberry pie
We do.
and homemade apple pie, all for Bury.
No,
There you go, Michael.
Don't even talk
It's all
about
yours.
that.
It's for the
Stop
table.
it. It's for the table.
Could we get some forks? Oh, thank you so
Oh,
much.
she has the
Thank you,
forks. She's ready.
She's thorough. She's ready.
It's not her first rodeo.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank
you. This is great. Oh, and it's warm too.
Really? Wow.
So what was interesting was when we were speaking with him, normally we ask our clients, can you provide us with any messaging between you, any photographs, anything of that nature? And he was saying, everything's gone, I don't have it.
And why is that?
Because on the day that he got arrested, which was later on that day. She went onto his computer and she had access to his electronics and deleted everything associated with her, which included messaging and pictures. So we retained a forensic tech expert. We were able to surrender the laptop computer, and fortunately, one app, which you normally can't get access to, was accessible for just the communications in a time period. I'm not going to say too much because I don't want to identify people, but May of 2022, where over a course of 3 days he's trying to break up with her over messaging. And it's, so I brought it, and we don't want to zoom in on it, but it's voluminous. Like we're talking
204 pages
That's a long breakup.
of
Over 3 days.
messages that took place over only 3 days.
Yeah.
But did she wipe
like-
his computer or just?
She didn't wipe the computer. She methodically went through his data and deleted anything that had to do with her.
That's pretty sophisticated.
Well, start scrolling through it, right? So she wanted to eliminate, as she said in cross-examination, anything related to me so he couldn't communicate with me. And as I'm saying, you realize accessing his private laptop and his private data
And deleting it.
and deleting
tampering with it.
that's an unlawful offense.
That's, that's somewhere in the criminal code. Yeah.
Mischief to data.
She acknowledged that it was unlawful, and the judge actually went, I'm sorry, what was your answer? So that was interesting, and that's on my list here of moments. But also, thankfully, the expert was able to recover photographs of our client whose bruises far exceeded hers.
We're talking,
Brutal.
you're looking at this going, oh my God.
That bad?
Shoulder to arm, blood
On
pooling
him.
at the elbows.
Oh wow.
Bad bruises.
And one of the particular injuries, what he did was he took photographs over time to show the progression of the injury
Of himself.
of himself. And so we had very compelling pictures of injuries, and we provided the Crown with the extraction report, which had all the metadata. So you had date of creation, which matched the date of modified. There was nothing.
There was no
he changed
modifications.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And it was so well done, he was able to say it was taken with an Apple phone of this make, the speed, the timing, how long it took, like it was just
Whether
full
the
of data.
flash was used, whether it was the front or the back camera on the phone, the device that was used to take the photo.
Everything.
Yeah.
So it's always very important to me, and I want to just say this in case other lawyers are watching this who are sometimes concerned, because we did not have an obligation to disclose. No
Right.
obligation
No, we
to
didn't.
disclose. Hold on, I'm struggling here to get some crust and some apple.
It's not an easy thing to do.
Come to mama.
It's not an easy thing to do.
So we didn't have to do that. But I'm big on disclosing evidence that I'm
Oh, for
certain of.
sure. Up front.
And I don't want any argument at trial from the Crown that's not authentic. That's not authentic.
And then you're ambushing me.
Because in this case, you'll go to the top ones. But when I started to pepper her with the pictures, they're all fake.
Oh my God.
And she
That's
starts
on the
laughing.
list here, too.
I can't believe the extent
He's
to
so
which she went.
brave.
Say it. What did you say?
She said, he's so brave to have gone and manufactured all these photos.
Really? She's ballsy.
And I'm saying, just to let you know, these were forensically extracted by an expert, and we provide the Crown with the report with all the data.
FYI.
And she's still saying it's all
After she's
fake.
already admitted to illegally erasing data off his computers.
But so
Data.
we were very lucky. That's right. We were very, very fortunate that he was able to recover what he was able to
Yeah,
recover.
that's huge.
So one can imagine that if he was not able to recover, he could have easily been found guilty.
Which took a long time, actually, to recover. And, but here's another point I want to make. When this complainant testified in chief, she was very compelling. She had all of this demeanor of the, a person who was afraid to fight back, a person who never took a single. She absolutely denied ever fighting back or ever hitting him in any manner whatsoever.
I was never verbally abusive to him.
She said, in fact, that she was afraid to fight back because she thought the beating would get worse if she tried to fight back.
He was the
And
controlling,
her
domineering
demeanor
person.
was perfect.
How long was the relationship? Sorry, I forgot.
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
But they lived together for about 3 months.
They lived together at one point, and then there was a separation for a while, and then they lived together
Got
for
it.
about a year and a half, I think.
No.
No. It was
3
only
months.
that's right. Yeah, it was only about 3 months.
But yeah, she was very clear about that. And then when I started cross-examination, I'm like, just lobbing up a bunch of, did you?
Yeah.
Just open-ended questions, which normally, the rule is. you
Never
don't
ask
to
an open-ended question
And
unless you
I
know the
had
answer.
I had the evidence, and I was just having fun
Right.
off the bat. And of course, she was, brazen enough to say, "Oh no, never."
Right.
And then I took the 204 pages, and for the next 2 hours, beat her with it. And I'm sorry to use that term, but literally. And it was brutal because the language that's used by her when he's saying, "I just want to peacefully break up. I'll be the bad guy in all
So
of this."
let me start going through my top 10
Wait,
list.
before the top 10, let's, because I'm just curious
We
how
can
this
comment
panned
on
out.
them as we go through.
So you took her through all the photographs.
First, I went through the messaging,
Right.
and then what I did was interspersed the photographs. So what really wasn't related, because the messages were a time period, let's say May,
Right.
for 3 days, and then the injuries were a period of time for
Starting in May,
June.
the first
One was
first
in May,
but-
June, and August, and going on. But what I wanted to do was intermix the areas of cross-examination, A, to make it more interesting for
Right.
the judge, and B, to prove my point that she was a highly aggressive, volatile abuser.
And the language that she
And-
used in these messages.
And had no hesitation to lie.
And is
No,
that what
zero.
she did
The
per
threats-
each photo? Like you went through one photo.
It's all fake.
denied- It's
She
all
just said
fake.
everything's
Everything's fake.
All fake.
But she
And the
attributed-
messages?
She had no choice but to admit this.
She had
She
to admit the
attributed
messages.
threats that he made and insults. He was like, "Oh, it's just humiliating. He used to insult my mother," and the precise language she attributed to him was found in the messages of her saying
Her
that to
saying
him.
it. Oh wow, that's
She adopted her
awkward.
own language
Her own language.
as what he was
reversed
saying,
it.
Oh,
and
wow.
reversed it.
Yeah. All right. So
That's not too.
we'll go through these
bright.
some of what you mentioned. So I did this in the typical top 10 list where
Of
you
course,
start
are
with
a
the
top
least
10 person.
you start with number 10, which is
Yes,
the least compelling, and we'll end
yeah.
up with the funniest.
With the best
okay?
one, yeah. Okay,
So this is a
Diana,
top
drum
10
roll,
list of
please.
funny moments. So number 10, when the complainant denied ever having hit or fought back against our client during alleged domestic assault incidents. So that's on my favorites, funny moments, because we knew what was coming
Right.
and she didn't. And her blanket denial, I'm just like, oh, this is
sweet.
rich.
Yeah,
this is
gonna be
rich.
Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
We already mentioned that one. Number 9, when the complainant looked at the photographs of the injuries that she was then presented with, that were she caused to our client, and said, "They're all faked."
Of course.
And of course, she didn't realize that we had them authenticated, right? So we've already mentioned that.
And I'll just say one other point. It was interesting because he went to a change room in a store in a mall to take photos because he didn't want to take these at home.
Oh wow.
And you could see the surroundings and everything, even the price tag on the clothing that he brought in, and the angle and everything. There's no way that these were faked.
No, he's trying on clothes and going, "Oh my God, I can't believe that these bruises are so bad."
And he took a series of photographs just because how shocked he was at how bad the bruising was.
Pause for a sec. What does authenticate translate into? We've been using these experts
We said this
regularly
before.
now.
We can authenticate, a person can authenticate their own pictures, but what we did was, with the extraction report, they go directly into the computer
Yeah.
and dig down through a specific program and are able to retrieve the photographs and then are able to get data as to the retrieval date, the storage date,
Right.
the creation date, and if there's any dates of modification.
Right.
And like I said, you could even tell from all the data that's stored on the laptop or the cell phone that you use how the photograph was taken. It was taken with an Apple X.
Right.
Apple
using the
whatever.
front or the back camera.
Front or back camera, the time that the picture took, all of that.
Exposure
Whether or
time,
not
all
the
of that,
flash
yeah.
was used.
So this was beyond authentication.
Oh yeah, that's beyond.
Yeah. So number 8 is when the complainant admitted to illegally destroying data. I got it right that time.
Yeah. Well, I need
Why
to
were
say
you
data.
saying
didn't
data?
I?
I
You
usually say data.
Data?
Yeah, I know.
Data. Yeah, okay.
But we go with Star Trek.
Yeah, I know.
That's right, data.
Can't blame
It's
you.
data from our client's computer. And so here's the thing, though, that she had him incarcerated, and he was immediately arrested from his home the same day she made the complaint.
And spent a month in jail.
He had
before
to
got
spend a
bailed.
month in jail. And this is something that the prosecutor didn't realize, because he started asking our client, why didn't you take pictures of your injuries on the day that you were arrested? Because he claimed that she was kicking him, and he said, just, that's it, you're out.
Right.
And he's like, well, why didn't you take pictures of your photos? And this was an issue we put to her, actually, for a different reason. But he was like, well, I couldn't, because I didn't know I had them. I had pants on, and I didn't see them until I was in jail and changing into the jail clothes.
wow.
And then he didn't have his phone with him, obviously. And
Right.
the prosecutor didn't realize, because he was new to the case, didn't realize he was in jail for 30 days.
1 month.
30 days
That's
before
Before he could get bailed.
That's horrible.
On the other hand, she claimed to have been beaten like one of the worst beatings, right? Kicked,
day.
Over
punched
half
in
an
the
hour.
head repeatedly for like half an hour.
With all this strength.
And yet, when the police
All
showed up,
over her body.
we had pictures of her within her interview where you could see her whole neck, and she claimed that her neck was covered in bruises all through the front and the sides, pristine.
So what we took stills from her video statement, put it to her, and she says, well, there's no evidence of it, but the bruising came in afterwards.
Came in
So I said,
afterwards, of course.
So what about the next day? Did you take a picture? No. What about the day after that? Did
Right.
you take
Did
a
you go
after
to the
that?
hospital,
No, I
doctor?
didn't. Nothing.
Yeah.
Zero. No.
She said, I just wanted to forget about it. Meanwhile, she took the time and effort to send the police historic photos, but didn't bother to take the ones of the current injuries.
ones, yeah.
I literally asked, what's the distinction in your mind? You say photographs allegedly of beatings, but on this one you say that there's at least a 30-minute total encounter where my client is punching you with all of the might, all over your body, your face, and everywhere. Why would you not secure the evidence?
Right.
It was just utter bullshit.
So that leads to number 7.
Oh, and they took a video of our client's hands.
Yeah, I know. And he's sitting there on the video, and he's literally looking at his hands on both sides on camera.
And I played that for her
Yeah.
in cross-examination.
Beautiful.
So that kind of ties into point number 7. When asked,
Somebody else eat this. I'm
Okay,
like,
fine.
just help me here.
We're gonna try.
when the complainant said that after having been asked for photographs of her injuries, she said she did not think to take photos of her current injuries.
Yeah, like, come on.
So that we kind of covered that in the other discussion. So number 6, when the Crown entered into an agreed statement of fact that the photographs were recovered by a computer forensic expert, and then started questioning our client in cross-examination about whether or not the images had been faked.
Why would you do that?
And that had to do with, just sort of issues about the chart being rather lengthy in terms of columns and stuff.
And he wasn't the assigned Crown.
Okay.
The poor
Yeah,
fellow
I can't blame it on
actually
him.
got the case that morning.
Oh, that's
And he was
rough.
doing his best, and he was a smart guy, and he was trying to be careful, and it
Thorough.
just took time. And frankly, you can't print this chart out.
No, it's one of those huge Excel
it's this Excel
sheets.
spreadsheet.
Right.
And you got to scroll all the way
All
to
the
the
way
right
to
to get everything
No,
else.
most
So-
people don't do the scroll.
Okay, so here's one. I don't know if you remember this or not. At number 5, the complainant, when asked originally by you, denied having passwords to his electronic devices.
Right.
And then immediately afterwards said, oh yeah, we both had passwords to each other's devices. But she originally denied having a password to his devices.
Part of this also is, as a lesson for cross-examination, you're going to come at the points in sometimes different ways and with different aspects of your cross-examination in order to elicit the answers you want.
Right.
You just don't ask in a,
No, you got to jump around.
you got to, but it's in an intelligent way.
Right. Not
And
hil-
so
not
it's
willy-nilly.
got to tell a story, and there has to be a way about going it. But you can always, a lot of the time, you can get at what you want to get and get the answer.
Right.
And, it is brilliant when you get a denial and lay that foundation
Right.
for the contradiction, right? Because her instinct was to say, I didn't know anything.
Right.
Me, I don't know nothing. And then she immediately realized that she had to admit to having these passwords. But like everything else, she said, oh, we both did, right?
Right.
So number 4 is, and it's just simple, when the complainant denied having a temper.
Yeah. Which I'm sure she demonstrated during
So what are some
cross.
examples?
Number 3.
You f***ing moron.
These are from the text
You really are
messages,
trash,
folks.
a bitch, a petty person, a retard. You should jump off a building so there'd be peace in the world.
And what was he saying to her the whole time?
You f***ing son of a bitch. You're f***ing great. And he kept saying, okay, I'll be the bad guy. But it's not good for us to continue this way.
Anger's
It's just
not
we're just
good.
going to continue to hurt each other.
I just want to end the relationship peacefully.
Die alone in the place you rent for $2,500. She was pissed off that he rented his own apartment.
No, I'm not.
You're
in terms
you're
of
f***ing
endearment.
cowardly.
She's saying she had no temper, that she was always
Not
passive.
at all. Yeah, she was very quiet, soft-spoken.
She says,
There's tons. I'm not
she
going to go
says,
into more.
You
but there's
don't
tons.
get to end this relationship
Oh,
peacefully.
you don't get
Literally.
to end it.
She would not let him. It was unrelenting. And he was trying, like one can say, just turn your phone off, right?
Not that
But
easy.
he wanted, and he expressed in here, there's no reason for us to hate each other.
Right.
I don't want you to hate me. You know, we had good times.
Yeah.
Can we just end like he truly wanted to just end it.
Yeah, sounds
And
like
it's
he-
berating him and berating him and berating. This was about 48 hours of like pretty vile language.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And she has no temper. And then as I took her through things and then I'm interspersing her temper, putting a picture to her, you fucking did that to him, didn't you? And it just got worse and worse for her.
Which leads to number 3. When confronted with over 200 pages of vitriolic messages in which she comes across like a complete maniac with a temper, what her reaction to was that she's just like, yes, I said that, but only because he said it.
Always.
He made me.
Only because
But there's nothing
only
in the
because he said
messages.
something to me.
Right.
There's nothing in
Tit
the
for tat.
messages of him saying anything to her. So
Zero.
it was unkind. Over
Zero.
200 pages.
0.
The only thing he did was send a shot of a calculator showing how much money she owed him.
he had loaned her $15,000 to help her get ready, get set for a job, bought her a laptop computer, cooked for her, cleaned, did all sorts of stuff.
Charming.
And we're getting into the most fun. So number 2. on the
Sadly,
top
we
10
call it
list.
fun. It's pretty
Yes,
tragic.
this is sad.
No, but when things go right, because people can be convicted despite
Yeah.
the evidence and despite being innocent. So it's to me it's enjoyable when justice is done in a courtroom, is visibly done,
Yep.
and everybody there observed it.
Right.
But number 2 was when the complainant told Joseph to go ahead and ask this next question, to which he said, "Thank you, I will."
He's always polite. What's he gonna say?
Okay, and that ties into the top funniest
The
moment.
number one.
When the complainant decided to explain sarcasm to Joseph
Oh
Newberger.
wow. Were you splained?
She
was
womansplained
complaining,
him.
splained him.
She womansplained
She
him.
woman. Wow. You survived.
That was sarcasm, Mr. Newberger.
Oh really?
I meant
invented
that
sarc-
sarcastically. And then my response was, yeah, I kind of got that.
Yeah, I got that. Thanks for coming out today.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
So then what's further interesting is that over the course of 48 hours, then things shift.
How so?
Let's get back together.
Are you kidding me?
No, let's get back
Let's
together.
get back together.
I love you. Let me come over.
Oh my God.
Other things. And then she goes into a little long soliloquy going about how good he was to her.
Yeah.
Wow.
You cooked for me. You took care of me.
You bought me things.
You had all those messages.
I guess why we're bringing this up is because we had another case now 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years,
Oh, yeah.
where we
reminded
called
me
in
a lot of
expert
this.
evidence to show that our client suffered complex trauma
Oh, yeah,
as
I
a result
remember
of
that one.
his wife complainant's abuse.
Right.
And we've stressed that domestic violence is not gendered.
No.
It does occur both ways. There is studies on this. It's very unfortunate. We don't diminish that
No.
men abuse women, but women abuse men.
Right.
But there are those who still want to say that it's utter bullshit, what we're saying. And I think what is so frightening to us at this stage of our career is we have, I got to say, this expert we used is great. Like, he was unrelenting also in getting this, okay?
Is this the digital
Digital expert.
forensic? Okay.
And he's like, I'm going to get this stuff one way or another. I'm going to get to it, right? And
Is this the
And-
guy
and this
we
is-
met at
no, but
billiards?
we're going to use him too. Like, we
Okay.
have a roster
Oh, yeah,
of
I
3
know.
really
We have
good
a
ones. And I'm just going to say this. I had an expert I needed on a case that involved alluring, where our client was innocent. And that expert said to me, or messaged me saying, I won't take the case. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
what the f***? We're defending our client. I'm telling you, you're going to find these messages. It's going to prove he's innocent.
Right.
I have the right to decide what cases I take on.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, that's the last case I'll ever refer to you, and I'm going to let the criminal bar know exactly where you stand on justice.
Right.
So when you have experts who are truly interested in helping the defense and seeking out the truth.
The truth, yeah.
Okay, it means more to us than ever.
Oh, of course.
I'm entering.
Well, neutrality is the important point, right? So, like, they're not going in saying, "Oh, I'm going to help you get him acquitted," or "I'm going to,"
I'm just going to
I
find
don't
the
like him,
evidence
so I
that
want
you
to
say
be
is there.
convicted. You just go in purely searching for what data exists.
Exactly.
But it's frightening to think that if
Data.
Or-
this
yeah,
data, if this
potato.
data was not able to be recovered,
Oh, I know. That is
I
terrifying.
could have still cross-examined, but the
True.
impact would have been significantly
Oh.
different.
Huge.
And we had a very good judge who would definitely do a proper analysis under WD. But you can imagine the disability we would have been under by a complainant who brazenly and criminally deleted our client's private data and tried to wipe clean any evidence of her abusive and criminal acts.
While turning
Because-
over her own photos.
Because at the end, it was obvious that she was the one who started the physical attacks. And our client, for what little he did testify, said, yeah, no, like, I'm not disputing these injuries that she has. I'm trying to fight back. She's literally kicking the shit out of me.
Right.
And he's like small,
Little
she's
guy.
a bit taller, he's stronger, but he's like, I'm having the shit kicked out of me here.
Right.
And he said, and some of this happened just before, literally just before this exchange, because he said he got cut with a knife and he got frightened. And he said, we shouldn't be together. And he reconciled because he started to feel guilty. I'm not going to say exactly why, but he felt some responsibility for her because she was in Canada, not with family here. And then he reluctantly let her come into the home, and then all hell broke loose after a little while. And to his credit, he said, first month it was okay, and then things started to go off the rails again, and it was very bad. So he was accepting of his own responsibility and his own agency in the matter, which is
that's
the
very
term I love.
important.
And she was accepting of none. And it became very clear in cross-examination that she was the instigator. She would snap. She was saying how, in the Crown's case, how frightened she was to trigger him.
Right. Right.
Okay? And yet he was asking about the thermostat. She goes, I got annoyed. So I started yelling at him. I'm like, oh, okay. So let's be real about this. You think this guy controls and beats the shit out of you. So you're just going to yell at him because he asked about the thermostat.
Right.
Right? So it took a while. It took several hours to get through this. But it became obvious that she was unmasked.
And reversing everything. Like,
Right.
Can you imagine if it
there's
didn't
messages in
have
there
this?
where he literally says,
Would not have been as
we've
much of a
talked
slam
about,
dunk
we've
as
talked
it
about,
was.
he actually says in the messages, we've talked about, you have anger issues and hitting others is not okay. And, I end up having to hold you
In the messages.
in the messages.
Wow.
He literally, and she doesn't dispute that.
No, finally. Well, so in the messages, it's an interesting exchange because this is why I was juxtaposing the pictures as I'm cross-examining. And she was very reluctant. She goes, well, I didn't agree with that. I said, yeah, what your next thing is there not a chance? And I'm like, you're writing, is there not a chance we can be together?
Right.
But when faced with that type of allegation, you might have said, what are you talking about?
Right.
And we know you did this because look at these pictures.
These pictures, yeah.
And just again, cross-examination. I'm going to be in my 33rd year, and you're going to be in your 34th year, I think.
No, I'm a newbie.
Okay, so my 32nd anniversary is coming up February 9th, so I'm entering my third. I still literally sit, and you help, draft out pages and pages of a cross-examination. And then I
But you
don't go to
can't
script.
pre-plan everything. It's like, the way things
a
come
map.
out in court, that's the genius and the,
You need a map.
A cross is a map.
that's what experience is for,
Sometimes
us
you
to know
veer.
how to handle these things on your feet as they come out in court.
But
and how to
stuff
make
like
those
this
adjustments.
helps me memorize absolutely everything and be able to maneuver with the evidence no matter what's going on.
And look at his
But-
notes. Nobody can read them except for him. They're like
That's
hieroglyphics.
true. They truly are very
They look
Egyptian.
like Egyptian
I
hieroglyphics.
love the Post-it note company.
Yes,
And-
you keep
no,
them
but
in
I
business.
I do type out the cross.
Yes.
But like it's so important, and this is just one of those other stark cases that we have where at the end of the day, your client's essentially factually innocent. At the end of the day, the Crown sees the falsity of the accusation, the importance of being able to get some demonstrative evidence to support your client's position, because there's this, if you're facing these types of photos, easily the accused could be convicted.
Because it's not common to have photos of bruises in assault allegations. Especially when they come in later, and the ones she had photos from were actually historic. You would have thought they would have had photos of the current one that she was alleging that was quite brutal, punched in the head, kicked, choked numerous times.
But even leaving that aside, assuming she didn't, and we didn't have this, very difficult. So I feel for those who are accused, men or women, that if they don't have access to their own evidence, it's a problem. And just think about when, again, I'm sorry I'm harping on this, but when the complainant, knowing he's in custody,
totally
goes back to his apartment for which it's his lease, goes to his computer,
and finds it's deleted.
Starts searching and deleting everything.
That's evil.
Like, can you imagine if she took the laptop and threw it in the bathtub?
Yeah.
Right.
It's pure evil.
But on the, another point to make too is, in working with this client, the production and search for his own images didn't take place for a long time, because, like a lot of other people, his focus was on, well, why isn't she being charged because I said blah, blah, blah. Right. The focus is, and that's why people...
It took a while for us to break through that psychological sort of obstacle, that his own trauma and his own, disdain for the system, and why is she not being... It took a lot of work for us to...
And as tough as it is, how long it takes for these cases to get to court, we've often said to clients, use that time wisely, because they're in a state of shock when they're first charged, and they're not thinking properly, and it does take a long time for them to actually suddenly go, oh, you know what I just remembered? Or they tell us something that we're just like, you could have told us that like 6 months ago.
But, I've always said, running a trial at a certain time is like when to pick the fruit off of the tree and eat it. It's a matter of ripeness. People will say, I need to get to trial right away. Okay, well, you're not psychologically in the right place to be ready for trial.
Almost never.
Also, we need to prepare the case.
Right.
If we have more than 3 cases, we need time.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have more than 3 cases?
Yeah.
And the client needs to acclimate. But the client needs to acclimate to the process. And they need to go through our process so that eventually, even though we were having these obstacles, we knew where we were going.
Right.
And eventually we get the client to the right place. Eventually we get them giving us what we need so that we can work with it, and getting them prepared and ready. And it takes time. And then us having the time to prepare. The more complex the case, the more time you need.
Yeah. And we just had a case recently too, where we're just about to go to trial, and the client goes, oh, you mean I have to testify?
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we missed that
misunderstood.
one.
Yeah, I know.
Because I know I went through the process.
It was pretty clear.
Whatever. I mean.
But that's because a result of the distraction and the trauma and all the things that they're going through, trying to keep themselves steady, and also when people are involved in family court, quite often they go into court and they just listen to lawyers.
It's also the U.S., and this is my debate with the United States.
Yeah.
It's like, you'll see, top criminal lawyers in the United States saying, it's almost a failure when you have to call your client. The whole case has to be on the complainant and focusing on their inconsistencies, and it's the state that bears the burden of proof. And I'm not making any criticisms. There's a lot of excellent counsel in the United States, and we follow many of them. But I'm of a different belief. When you're in the domestic range and the sexual assault range, you got to call your client.
And it's got to be a he said, otherwise it's
and
just
you've got to tell a story.
Yeah.
Your cross-examination will be meaningless unless you're telling a story.
Right.
The story is about your client and about what he's eventually going to testify.
Yeah, yes.
And that's how you have the most effective cross-examination, which will bring out the evidence you need to establish innocence. And again, like we said, that's our job. Yes, it's the state. There's a presumption. I don't care.
Doesn't matter. People want to hear from the accused.
We have to go over the top to do it. And so I think people are influenced by seeing that type of work in the U.S. and thinking it translates here. I've had people saying, well, I don't want to testify. I'm like, all right, well, you're going to get convicted.
Yeah.
I can only do so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, isn't it a he said, she said? Yeah, well, that doesn't mean you're going to win the battle.
Right. You still have to say.
You still have to testify. Where's the
That's why it's
he
called-
said if you don't testify?
That's right. That's why
Yeah,
we call it
I
he
know.
said, she said.
But this is just a really one of those special cases in which, it became evident to everybody in that courtroom that
Everybody
everybody,
spoke to us
including the
about it.
prosecutor, and the judge made it clear as well, would have come to the same conclusion. And so for, the people who say that that when somebody is acquitted, it's just a failure of the justice system, no.
This was justice.
This was a success of the justice system.
Now, it's terrible that it had to come to charges, and he had to spend a month in jail.
And she probably won't be charged.
Even though she admitted to illegally erasing data.
There's not going to be an investigation into
That's
what
what
she
I
did.
mean.
And I just want to say this for one more second.
We get asked that a lot by our clients.
When politicians talk about bail reform, okay? Again, I just want to emphasize, be very careful about what you want, because I understand that there are things going on in the community that scare the public. I understand that there are people out there who are on bail and committing other offenses. But you can make no doubt that when you give the government an inch, they'll take a mile. And in that, they want to include other offenses like intimate partner violence, sexual assaults, where they make a reverse onus or other things.
That's scary.
Well, we already have a reverse
We
onus
have
if
a
somebody's
reverse
been charged before in any event. You got to be careful about this because he was in jail for a month. Had he been detained with no criminal record,
Can you imagine?
his ability to access and defend himself is significantly,
done that
if not
from jail?
impossibly, diminished.
Right. And what's one of the most common things we hear from clients? I never realized this could happen to me.
All the time.
And so people who are making these laws have to understand they could find themselves facing the very same laws that they're creating.
Their friends, or family.
Anybody.
There needs to be balance. And yes, there may be some reforms that are necessary with respect to our bail provisions. I get that. But, leaving that aside and all the issues with the trafficking of firearms coming from the United States, when they're arguing with us about our border security, thank you for sending all your f***ing guns up here. But leaving that aside, be careful about what politicians say about criminal justice issues and carefully scrutinize it.
What about the pie?
F***ing great.
I know, wasn't it?
Okay, let's go
We
finish
can't
it.
finish it? Okay.
Oh, we'll finish
All
it.
right, let's finish it. Congratulations. Last week was a great week.
It was a great week, a
And-
great
yeah.
start to the new year.
And this is fun. This is just fun. Thanks, Max.
Don't
Offenders
forget,
and diners, if you like it, please don't forget to.
like, subscribe, hit notifications.
Can we call
leave
that Pie
comments.
Talk?
Pie talk. I like
talk.
that instead of pillow talk.
Send us your emails, send us your comments. We'll come up with other ideas that you want to hear
Send
about.
us meal ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You saw me, eating pie, or if you saw me eating a banquet burger, what do you want to see us eating next? Good night, everybody, and thank you very much.